What happens when one of Hollywood's wildest stars sits down with a seasoned political journalist for what's supposed to be an ordinary breakfast show interview? The result is a surprising moment of TV magic that caught everyone off guard. But before we dive into this wild story, don't forget to hit that follow button and let me know your thoughts on what set off Mark Wahlberg's epic meltdown on live TV. Trust me, this tale has twists you won't see coming. As the Good Morning America set buzzed with its usual pre-show energy, crew members scrambled to finalize everything. Mark Wahlberg was chilling in the guest chair, adjusting his mic like a pro who's been through tons of interviews. Across from him, George Stephanopoulos was flipping through his notes, preparing for what his team had dubbed an easy promotional chat about Wahlberg's latest action flick. When the cameras started rolling, Stephanopoulos smiled his trademark polished smile and said, "Good morning, Mark. It's great to have you with us today." Wahlberg grinned back, settling in with that quintessential Boston charm. "Let's talk about your new film, which seems to follow the same high-energy underdog theme. Some critics are saying you're just rehashing the same character. What's your take on that?" Wahlberg's relaxed demeanor shifted a bit, and his smile tightened. "Well, George, I think those critics should actually watch the films before they write their reviews. Each character I play brings something different to the table." Stephanopoulos leaned in, sensing an opportunity to dig deeper. "But isn't there a recurring theme? The blue-collar Boston guy who makes it through sheer guts and determination. Some say you're just playing versions of yourself." The crowd in the studio fell silent, but backstage, the producers were starting to take notice. This wasn't the light-hearted promotional chat they had expected. "You know what, George?" Wahlberg's voice sharpened. "Maybe the real issue isn't me playing myself. Maybe it's that Hollywood has forgotten how to create authentic characters. When you come from where I do, living my life, being genuine really matters." Stephanopoulos nodded, but his reporter instincts kicked in. "Speaking of authenticity, let's talk about your past. You've been open about your tough teenage years, the legal issues, and the time you spent in jail. Do you ever worry that these roles might glamorize violence in a way that's irresponsible, considering your influence?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Wahlberg's jaw tightened, and for a moment, the only sound was the soft buzz of the cameras. "That's an interesting way to put it, George," Wahlberg replied, his voice eerily calm. "Reckless. Let me ask you this. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to fight just to survive? Have you lived in a place where violence isn't just something from the movies but impacts whether you get home safely?" Stephanopoulos maintained his composure, though he seemed a bit stiffer. "Mark, I'm not questioning your experiences. I'm trying to address the responsibility that comes with being a public figure." "Public figure?" Wahlberg laughed without humor. "George, I never agreed to be anyone's role model. What I signed up for was to tell stories that matter, stories about real people dealing with real challenges. But people like you want to reduce everything to some catchy political slogan. I don't think talking about societal duty is just a political thing," Stephanopoulos shot back, his tone getting sharper. "You've got millions of fans, a lot of them young. Don't you owe them something?" Wahlberg leaned in closer, reducing the space between them. "What I owe them is honesty. I owe them stories that show you can screw up, come from nothing, and still create something meaningful. But I don't owe anyone a perfect image to make people who haven't faced real struggles feel better." The studio went completely quiet, even the camera crew stood frozen, unsure whether to continue filming or cut for a break. Stephanopoulos pressed on, his training as a journalist kicking in despite the growing tension. "But Mark, isn't that a contradiction? You make money off portraying violence while saying you're a force for good." That comment pushed Wahlberg over the edge. He jumped up from his chair, which scraped back against the floor. "Profit? You want to discuss profit, George? Let's talk about how news outlets thrive on fear and division. Let's talk about how commentators like you benefit from keeping people stirred up and split. At least my films are honest about being fiction." Stephanopoulos stayed seated, but his voice rose to match Wahlberg's intensity. "That's not the same, and you know it. We're talking about your responsibility as an actor. No, George, we're talking about your need to create drama where there isn't any," Wahlberg shot back. "This was supposed to be about my movie, but you've turned it into a political attack." The host's polished demeanor started to unravel. "No one's trying to ambush you. These are just fair questions that any serious reporter would ask." "Serious reporter?" Wahlberg's tone had taken on a sharp edge. "Is that how you see yourself? Because from my vantage point, you're just another talking head out to score points by tearing down someone who actually built something from the ground up." Stephanopoulos rose to his feet, abandoning the pretense of a friendly conversation. "I've been in journalism longer than you've been making films, Mark. I don't need a lesson on integrity from someone whose idea of depth is just finding new ways to throw punches on screen." That jab hit hard. Wahlberg's face flushed, and for a brief moment, the street-smart kid from Dorchester broke through his Hollywood veneer. "Is that really what you think?" Wahlberg asked, his voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. "That I'm just some lucky musclehead?" Stephanopoulos fiddled with his tie, a nervous habit that betrayed his effort to maintain control. "Mark, I never called you dumb. But you can't ignore that your career is built on a very specific type of role." "You're right, George," Wahlberg replied, inching closer to the desk between them. "My career's about portraying characters that feel real, characters that show working folks their stories matter." "What about your career? Just tossing out gotcha questions at people who actually create things?" The crew exchanged worried glances. This was off script, and the commercial break was still 8 minutes away. "My job is all about holding public figures accountable," Stephanopoulos said, his tone steady, though he fidgeted with his notecards, showing some tension. "When you have a platform like yours, that kind of scrutiny comes with the territory." Wahlberg's Boston accent thickened as he replied, "Accountable for what, exactly? For making people laugh? For sharing stories that show people can overcome their struggles? Or are you saying I should be held accountable just for succeeding, no matter where I come from?" Stephanopoulos sensed he was losing control of the interview, but his competitive side kicked in. "I just want to have a real conversation about what your films communicate, especially to young men who might think violence is a solution." Wahlberg let out a bitter laugh. "George, have you even seen my movies? Or did you just read the summaries your team prepared? If you actually watched them, you'd realize that violence is portrayed as a last resort, something that leaves scars on those who resort to it." Stephanopoulos continued to press. "But it's still celebrated, isn't it? The hero always wins through sheer force." "What kind of message does that send?" Wahlberg shook his head in frustration. "The message is that sometimes good people have to stand up to bad ones. When the system fails, ordinary folks sometimes have to muster the courage to do what's right." "But you wouldn't understand that, would you, George? You've spent your whole career sitting behind a desk, asking questions without facing the real-world consequences." The personal jab hit hard. You could see Stephanopoulos' professional facade crumble. "That's completely unfair, and you know it. Journalism is about asking hard questions, not going through every experience yourself." "Is that really the case?" Wahlberg shot back. "Because from where I'm standing, it seems like journalism has turned into a way to twist stories to suit whatever agenda sells ads." "You came in here with a story already written, didn't you?" "I came ready to ask real questions about your work and its impact," Stephanopoulos countered. "If you can't handle that kind of scrutiny, maybe you shouldn't be on the publicity circuit." Suggesting he couldn't take the heat was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Wahlberg's eyes flared. "You think I can't handle it, George? I've been under a microscope my whole life, whether it's cops, judges, critics, or random people who think they know me based on my past. The difference is, I don't hide behind a fake sense of neutrality. I own my decisions." "And how about choosing to walk out of this interview?" Stephanopoulos asked, a hint of mockery in his voice. "Because that's what you're doing now, right? Running away when the questions get tough?" That accusation froze Wahlberg in his tracks. For a moment, he stood there, trying to process the implication of cowardice. When he finally spoke, his voice was eerily quiet. "You think I'm running away?" Stephanopoulos felt a fleeting sense of power. "I think you're used to easy interviews about your workout routine and latest movie. When someone challenges you to think critically, you get defensive." "Defensive?" Wahlberg repeated, the word tasting bitter. "George, if you want to talk about defensive, that's you hiding behind your reporter badge to avoid admitting you came here itching for a fight." "I'm just doing my job," Stephanopoulos said firmly. "Your job?" Wahlberg's voice rose again. "Aren't you supposed to be informing people instead of stirring up drama for ratings? That's what this really is, right? You need some controversy because your show's losing viewers to streaming and social media." That hit hard, and you could see Stephanopoulos' polished facade start to crack. "That's ridiculous. Good Morning America has been the top morning show for years." "Really?" Wahlberg shot back, seizing the moment. "Because I've heard you're struggling to stay relevant when people can get news from anywhere. So you bring me on, hoping I'll say something silly that'll go viral." "Nobody wanted you to say anything silly, Mark. We were looking for a meaningful conversation about your work." "Meaningful?" Wahlberg scoffed. "This isn't meaningful, George. It's just you trying to stir up outrage for Twitter clout." "Well, congratulations, you'll probably get it." Stephanopoulos realized the interview was spiraling, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. If this is the kind of conversation we're getting from Hollywood's top stars, maybe the critics are right about where entertainment is headed. That condescending tone was the last straw. Wahlberg clenched his fists, and you could sense him battling a reaction that could ruin his career. "You know what, George? You're right about one thing, this conversation is over." He began to unhook his mic, but Stephanopoulos pressed on. "So that's it? When things get tough, Mark Wahlberg just walks away? Guess that's the kind of hero your films really celebrate, someone who bails when it gets hard." Those words stopped Wahlberg in his tracks. His hand froze on the mic clip, and slowly, he turned back, his glare making crew members shrink back. "What did you just say?" His whisper sliced through the quiet studio like a knife. Stephanopoulos realized he had pushed things too far but didn't want to back down. I mean, maybe this is who you are, a tough talker who runs away from real scrutiny. Wahlberg stepped closer to the desk, looming over the now-seated host. You want real scrutiny, George? Let's talk about growing up with nothing, watching friends either die or get lost in the system. Let's talk about messing up so badly you think you can't come back from it, yet still finding a way to build something meaningful. Mark, please take a seat, Stephanopoulos said, losing the authority in his voice. No, I'm not going to do that, Wahlberg shot back. You called me a quitter, George, and I won't just let that slide. I've never been a quitter. At 15, when I got arrested, I didn't quit. When everyone laughed at my music career, I didn't quit. And when critics said I'd never be a serious actor, I didn't quit. His intensity was palpable, even drawing in the already tense audience. But here's what really gets to me, he said, his voice growing louder. You sit there in your fancy suit, with your elite education, judging my choices, my work, my right to my own success. What have you built, George? What have you created that wasn't there before you? Stephanopoulos attempted to interject. Mark, you've got journalism's purpose all wrong. No, I understand it, Wahlberg interrupted. Journalism used to be about informing people. Now, it's all about tearing them down for clicks, twisting everything into the worst possible narrative because conflict sells. That's not what this is, Stephanopoulos argued, but his words wavered. Then what is it? Wahlberg pressed. Because it feels like a setup to me. You brought me here to promote my movie, then spent a quarter of an hour painting me as a thug who doesn't deserve success. The director was waving his arms, desperate for a commercial break, but the cameras just kept rolling, capturing what felt like a pivotal moment in time. Stephanopoulos tried to regain some control. Mark, I think you're taking valid questions about your cultural influence too personally. Too personally? Wahlberg let out a harsh laugh. George, let me give you a taste of reacting. It's growing up with nothing and having people think you're stupid just because of your accent. It's working your butt off to get ahead and having it brushed off as luck. It's trying to use your platform to tell meaningful stories, only to have some talking head reduce your whole career to the guy who throws punches. I never said that, Stephanopoulos argued. You didn't have to, Wahlberg shot back. It's all in those loaded questions, those smug looks, and every condescending jab at where I come from. And you know what's ironic? You say I glorify violence in my films, but here you are, coming and looking for a fight. The weight of Wahlberg's words hung in the air, making even Stephanopoulos realize the seriousness of the situation. All right, Mark, he said, searching for common ground. Maybe we didn't start off on the right foot. Let's take a step back and focus on your film. But Wahlberg wasn't interested in resetting things. Reset? You don't get to take shots at me for 20 minutes and then ask for a fresh start just because it's not going your way. This is you, George. You thrive on other people's struggles. That's not fair, Stephanopoulos responded, though his words fell flat. Fair? Wahlberg shook his head. You want fair? Is it fair to judge my work based on some story you've already made up? Is it fair to question my integrity while hiding behind objectivity? Stephanopoulos made one last attempt. Mark, I didn't mean for you to feel attacked. That wasn't my intention. Your intention doesn't matter, George. What counts is what you did, inviting me to promote my film and then trying to paint me as some violent thug who doesn't belong. You really didn't have to do that, Wahlberg remarked. It's clear in every pointed question, every doubtful glance, and every condescending tone. You're worried about the messages in my films. But what message are you sending? That if you come from the streets, have made mistakes, or speak with a Boston accent, you don't deserve any respect? The studio fell silent, everyone realizing they were witnessing something historic. Wahlberg turned towards the main camera. You know what? I think folks are smart enough to tell the difference between movies and real life. They understand stories about redemption, second chances, and everyday people doing extraordinary things. But some in the media seem to think the audience is too naive to see that. He looked at Stephanopoulos, who appeared somewhat diminished. Here's the deal, George. I'm walking out now, and you'll get your viral moment. People are going to debate who's right. But I'll continue making movies that matter, while you sit there looking for your next target to take down. Wahlberg reached for his microphone again, and this time, Stephanopoulos didn't intervene. One more thing, Wahlberg said, unclipping the mic next time you want an honest conversation about my work. Maybe actually watch it first. You might grasp the difference between glorifying violence and showing the real consequences of choices. He dropped the mic on the desk and walked toward the exit. Cameras followed him until he disappeared, leaving a stunned host and a studio full of witnesses to a memorable TV moment. Stephanopoulos sat in silence for a few moments before addressing the camera. We'll return after this break. But everyone understood that things had changed for good. What do you think about that intense exchange? Did Mark Wahlberg overstep, or did George Stephanopoulos provoke it with his questions? Share your opinion below and subscribe for more outrageous celebrity TV moments.